This is Dr. Tom Roselle, live, 105.9 FM and AM 630, WMAL.
Welcome to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. I'm live in studio, and we bit the bullet again. We just kind of scooted by the storm, but I'm here to answer your questions on integrative care, on wellness care, from chiropractic, acupuncture, nutrition, and all those things that you may not have thought about previously. Perhaps you've had a problem, you've thought, and you saw it, and you've looked around and applied, and guess what? You came up with the same old, nothing's really worked well. Well, that's what this program's all about. 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you on any subject that you have in mind. I've got one for you today, and we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to all of our hearts, particularly those of us who live here in the Washington metropolitan area. It's called stress. More importantly, it's how stress affects the fight-flight system, your ability to either stand and fight the tiger or collapse. And what we're talking about is the metaphor application of what happens when structural, chemical, emotional pathways are overburdened to the point where they begin to cause health problems. You collapse. Either your body's not working from a structural point of view, you're producing pain, or emotionally you're just wrung out, you're depressed, you're anxious, you're flaring off the handle quickly because of minor things, or dietarily, biochemically, things aren't working. We're talking about stress. Good friend of mine, Dr. Evan Mladenoff out of Kansas City, wrote a book years ago. It's called Stressed Out, Headed for Burnout. And he had a very intimate experience with this many years ago where Dr. Mladenoff was going like a madman. By the way, he was the chiropractor for the Kansas City Chiefs for 12 years, and as well as handling one of the most active and busy practices in the country, lecturing all over the country and throughout the world. But he reached that place where he collapsed. He literally fell apart, and subsequently became very intimate with how that fight-flight system, where that adrenal system actually has, the control mechanism, and he disrespected it, and as a result. And I've gone through that several times in my life as well. Seems to be all of us that are Class A personalities and overachievers to some extent will have that happen to us. So what I want to share with you today is all those things that go bump in the night, so to speak, the symptom processes, if you will, from fatigue to intolerance of cold, poor circulation in your body, allergy reactions, pain that just doesn't ever seem to go away, and often diagnosed as fibromyalgia, but any chronic pain pattern, things that don't heal, muscle weaknesses, the inability to fight infection in your body, low self-esteem. You wonder where that comes from? Well, it can simply be the things that we're talking about. So we're going to get into that and answer any of your questions that relate to that, but I also want to invite you. This Wednesday evening at the Roselle Center for Healing, guess what? I'm going to be your host. I'm going to be your lecturer. And we're going to be talking about adrenal stress, adrenal fatigue. I'd like to invite you. Please be my guest. All you need to do is call 703-698-7117. That's 703-698-7117. Tell my staff that you'd like to attend my lecture, Dr. Tom Roselle. And trust me, we're going to spend the time. We're going to get into it. We're going to get real cozy and intimate with the things that cause you to break down. Understand that it's repairable. It's fixable, as long as you don't ignore it. I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you the path on how to fix this ugly situation. And what I mean by that is, how do you get out of the mess when nobody else has been able to fix it? You've been everywhere. You've done everything. You've applied all kinds of things. And I'm going to really show you how to take control of your life. 888-630-9625. That's how we talk today. And 703-698-7117. That's how you call my office and schedule for this Wednesday evening's presentation on adrenal stress. Just tell them that you'd like to be there. And by the way, remember that every lecture we do in the office is a gift to you. It is our way of educating you on how to take care of yourself. Because it's free, we do require a reservation. So make sure you do that, and then we will confirm with you. But let's talk about adrenal stress. Let's talk about the things that haven't been working so well for you and why you can't get rid of it. We're dealing with anti-aging medicine today. And when you deal with anti-aging medicine, people want to know about the fountain of youth. What bullet, what thing can I take? What can I do to, really fight the slings and arrows of age and time? Well, here's the skinny on it. It's all about you. It's about how you handle your time on this planet from way back up until now and what you're going to do moving forward. Because, see, as long as you're living, as long as you're breathing, the body is extremely forgiving. It will turn itself around at any moment in time, but you have to understand what really takes place. When we hit about 25 years of age, our growth hormone starts beginning to decline. So that means that we're not going to build muscle as rapidly as we used to. We can maintain it, and there's ways of actually triggering growth hormone. But by the time we get to 40, we start seeing a decline that can be quite significant if we don't, watch what we're doing. You see all these prime movers, as I like to call them, athletes and Hollywood stars and in many cases political figures, looking for growth hormone injections and taking pills and steroids and all kinds of things to maintain their youth. Well, the truth of it is that they're actually hurting themselves and causing a side event called tumors and cancers and the like, where if you really understood the process, you could stop it, you could maximize it, and you could look good all of your years. I saw a program the other night where there's this guy, he was 101 years old, and he's in the gym and he's moving iron and he's working out, and I'm looking at him and I say, I want to be just like him. My hero was Jack Lalanne, 90-some years old, great shape, and really looked good. And this was a guy who was a weakling. He was like, the 98-pound weakling when he was a kid. He was always sick. He always had problems. But he was able to put it together, and he became the light, the torch for the rest of us to show what really, how could you change anything about yourself, live well, and, really take control of your life. The only hormone that continues to grow as you get older, continues to rise, is cortisol. Cortisol, as you know, is a stress hormone. It's produced by the outer shell called the adrenal cortex, and it is in response to stress that we have in our life. Well, see, you have to have cortisol to repair and to fix things, but too much cortisol will eat you up. It actually will destroy your tissue, and that's where you get that fat layer around your stomach and your hips and so forth, and muscles begin to break down, and you don't have the capacity. And too little hormone, your body can't fix anything. It doesn't repair anything at all. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about how this fight-flight system works. And do you need chiropractic treatment? Do you need acupuncture treatment? Do you need nutrition? Do you need homeopathy? Do you need to exercise more? Do you need a mental enema, if you will, and get rid of all the stinking thinking that's in your brain and kind of turn things around? Well, the short answer to most of that is yes. You need all of those things, but you need a guide, and I'm going to be the guide today, so we're going to figure this out together, and we're going to invite you this Wednesday evening. But depression and sleep pattern disturbances, immune function, thyroid problems, whether you can't get that extra 10 pounds off, they just never go away, and they hang around your middle, chronic fatigue patterns, rashes. The bottom line is whether you're in pain physically or you're in pain emotionally, this is really where it's coming from. Wednesday night, we're going to talk about how to balance this. We're going to talk about the diagnostic principles. We're going to talk about very simple laboratory tests, things that you can do at home, things that you can get your hands on to make a difference, and how we can work as a team to make you better. It's always about you. It's really about what's going on in your life. So here's a questionnaire, mental checklist for you. Do you feel your pulse start to rise, when you get a little stressed out? Does it kind of jump up real quick? Even little minor things. Do you get a little anxious from time to time? Does your chest feel a little constricted, like somebody's sitting on it, sometimes an elephant? Do you have to go to the bathroom all of a sudden, suddenly, with no warning? You sit up and you got to run? Are your palms a little sweaty? Do your feet get sweaty? Is your brain constantly agitated, or it's foggy and you can't focus and you can't think? Do you feel less sharp and unable? Well, the bottom line is that all of these things, as well as pain patterns, come about because of many stresses we have in our life, whether they're good stresses or bad stresses. Here's the point, by the way. Your body doesn't know the difference between something that actually happens to you and something that you emotionalize. So the stress of emotion is the same as stress of activity. Activity can be good. You could be out exercising, but some of you over-exercise and you don't give yourself rest periods. The stress of emotional slings and arrows, you don't know how to break the pattern. You don't do anything to balance it out. And there are tons of things. We sit in traffic all day long. We have people who have tight skin and, they pull in front of us. We're susceptible to violence. We watch television. We see people being shot and murdered and beaten and raped in our own community. And it's like, okay, well, what's for dinner? Believe it or not, those things go deep to the core, and they continue to have an effect on your system, and they begin to break you down. So you've got to go through the scale of appreciation. Years ago, Holmes' Rafe Social Readjustment Scale was about how many stresses can you stand before you collapse? And then there was a score that you went through. Things like, have you suffered a death of a spouse? Are you going through, or have you been through a divorce? Is there a separation from either somebody who's very close or a spouse or whatever? A jail term, death of a close family member, personal injury or illness, marriage. Were you fired or did you change jobs? Did you get remarried? Did you reconcile your marriage? Retirement, change of health for whatever reason. Did you get pregnant? Sex difficulties, gain of a new family member, business readjustment, change of financial state, and it goes on. Do you have a mortgage over $10,000? Yeah, really? If you're living in this area, it's like 20, 30 times $10,000. All of these things add up into the stressors, and then there's a score, and the tabulation of the score tells you how bad you are. If you have a score that exceeds 300 points in 1 year, you're probably at the point where you're going to develop a very serious illness, or you're going to have an accident, or you're going to be in pain that won't go away, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So we often, when I lecture on stress, when I lecture on adrenal insufficiency, if you will, at any of the colleges or at corporations that we do business with, I go through this checklist. And by the way, when we get together Wednesday night, when you join me for my lecture at Roselle Center for Healing, we're going to go through a checklist, and I'm going to put you intimately in touch with what's happening with your body and what you're going to experience if you don't make changes. So we have to figure it out. We live in overcrowded environments in our life, particularly if we live here in the Washington area. We sometimes don't get the exercise. We have exposures to extremes. Sometimes it gets too hot. Sometimes it gets too cold. You don't eat well. Your dietary patterns sometimes stink. And all of these things ultimately cause the body to begin to break down. The biological reactions to stress go not on just to the superficial level of the organ system not working the way it's supposed to, but it goes to the genetics. It causes genetic shift. We know at high emotional levels, with the wrong type of environment, with the wrong type of nutrients, that your genetic map, what allows you to function at high levels, goes out the door. Yesterday, Dr. Leonard Poe and Sue, my wife, is also head of our nutrition department, attended a lecture on autoimmune function, and it was about the piece of the adrenal system, the fight-flight system was part of the lecture, and how it reacted. See, there's something called secretory IgA antibody that is your first line of defense in most serious microorganism infections. And if that sucker's down, guess what? You're not going to really get out of anything. Your body can't heal. It doesn't have the capacity. So then it goes deeper, it goes inside. In any kind of stress pattern, you go through 3 stages. You go through alarm, you go through resistance, and then you go through exhaustion. And by the time I'm done with you today, you're going to be really exhausted because your brain's going to say, oh my God, that's me, and we have to fix it. We're at 888-630-9625. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle live on 105.9 FM. I am in studio broadcasting to 105.9 FM. Give me a call, 888-630-9625. I'd like to invite you Wednesday evening, February the 22nd, 7:30 p.m. The Roselle Center for Healing is going to be hosting again our in-house continuing education program, and guess what? I will be your host. I'm the guy that's going to present, and we're going to be talking about adrenal stress and burnout. Do you have pain? Do you have anxiety? Do you have digestive problems? You got some weight that you can't take off? Your thyroid doesn't work? All those things have to do with something that is very similar. It's called adrenal fight-flight crash. And you've been crashing for a long time, and what I want you to understand is that really it's about what you've been doing. A lot of it is susceptibility because of genetic pass-through, but we know that 80% of all genetics can be changed. And if you understand that and you take the application from how you treat your body physically, what you put into your system biochemically, the foods that you eat, my old mantra, sugar, sodas, coffee, teas, fast food, fried foods, alcohol, and it goes on. If you do those things and you're not really repairing and supporting the body with good fuel, good high-test stuff, and if you're stressed out all the time and you don't have any other reaction except exploding, you're going to have a problem. We talked about before the break that there's 3 phases. It's called alarm reaction, there's resistance reaction, then there's exhaustion. Your body's constantly being stimulated, that's alarm. You resist it by doing the things that you need to do, that's how your body protects yourself. And then the second piece, or the third piece, is that you go into shutdown, you go into exhaustion, the body can't do it anymore. We're going to be right back to that topic, but first we're going to go to the telephone. Laura, how can I help you?
Hi, Dr. Roselle. Thanks for taking my call. I was listening to your last week, I believe, about vitamin D3.
Yes, ma'am.
And, excuse me, I'm taking vitamin D3, and I've been reading about it a lot. And as much as it's good for your heart, they say that overdoses could hurt the heart. So what I'm taking is it's Women's 1 vitamin.
How much vitamin D is in it?
It has 800 IU.
It's not even.
I am taking also a vitamin D3 supplement.
And what's how much?
1,000 IU
of D. So you're taking about 1,500 a day. That's not a problem. You're not even close. In this area, you get little or no vitamin D from September 1st to the first part of May because the sun's on an angle and you can't stimulate the skin receptors to produce the vitamin D. So you have to get it from outside sources. Mm-hmm. Generally, and I can't tell you how much to take, but because I don't see your blood work in front of me. But what I can tell you is this. Anything under 50 units measured on laboratory scale is considered insufficient. Anything under 32 is deficient. When you're trying to raise that up, you take up to 4, 5, 6, 10,000 units a day, and then within 100 days you redo the blood test. You want to get that blood level up to about 70 to 75 where your immune system is being supported. And the problem with vitamin D is that it's fat soluble. However, at that level, you're really not going to get in any trouble. I personally take 6,000 to 8,000 units of vitamin D all winter long. And in the summertime, if I'm outside during the day for an hour or so, I'll drop it back, but I'll still take somewhere around 2,000, sometimes 4,000 a day. But again, I can't recommend what you should take specifically, but I can tell you that if you're taking a couple thousand units of vitamin D a day to 4,000 units of vitamin D a day, you're not going to get in trouble.
Okay.
Laura, thank you for your call.
One more question,
yes,
Dr. Roselle.
Real quick.
Where can I find the magnesium glycinate or glyconate?
You can go to Whole Foods. You can go to
they don't have it. They can
order it for you. You can go online and find it.
Okay.
Go to Trader Joe's. Go to Wegmans. They've got an apothecary in there.
Okay.
So just, let your fingers do the walk and make the phone calls and see who carries it. But if you can't get the glycinate form, then you can use the aspartate form or you can use the malate form. So glycinate will probably work much better, but stay away from the carbonate form because it's very difficult for your body to unbind and use. But the other ones will work as well. But the glycinate for that particular situation is better. Again, Laura, thank you. I appreciate your phone call. We're talking about adrenal stress patterns, and this Wednesday evening, I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty with you. And if you want to find out how really to go about maybe getting your thyroid stabilized and repairing all kinds of chronic, insidious problems with digestion, perhaps, ladies, if you haven't been able to get pregnant, the adrenal system is part of the problem. If you're going through a very difficult menopause or perimenopause, the adrenal system can be part of the problem because the outer shell of the adrenal glands produces estrogens, testosterones, and progesterones after you're done with your cycles, when you're done menstruating. It's a normal process. But when you're stressed, you go through a very difficult process. The adrenal gland stimulates a gland called the hypothalamus, which also triggers your pituitary and then downstream many, many other organ systems. You're constantly in a stage of resistance, but you can only stay there so long because sooner or later you're going to go into failure, and that's where those problems that just don't go away hang out constantly. Give me a call at 888-630-9625. More than happy to answer any of your questions. And please join me this Wednesday evening. Call my office at 703-698-7117. That's 703-698-7117. Tell my staff you'd like to attend my presentation on adrenal stress. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. I am in studio. 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you on any subject that you have in mind. Perhaps you've had a problem and you've come up with nothing. Well, the problem we're facing today is chronic stress patterns. And unfortunately, if we don't get a grip on them, if we don't understand which direction to go and how to handle them, we succumb to the slings and arrows, if you will, of our time. And those of us who want to live longer, live well, live more profoundly with an attitude of, yes, I can, this program and the program that I'm doing this Wednesday evening, the 22nd, is for you. We're talking about adrenal stress. Stress affects us every day, every way, and it depends on how our bodies handle it. It determines whether or not you come out on the other end in a good shape. Well, the 22nd, which is this Wednesday evening at 7:30, I'm going to get real intimate with you on this particular subject. If you'd like to find out why you have thyroid problems, why you're in pain all the time and the pain won't go away, why you have recurrent digestive problems, why your immune system is kind of cranked down and you seem to get sick every time somebody coughs around you, well, you have to start looking at what that adrenal system is doing and why it can't work optimally. The adrenal system, the fight-flight system, is your key. It is the mainstay. It's what keeps you alive. Without that, no adrenal system, you're gone. There's a very specific biological reaction to adrenal stress, and we're going to get into it intimately, very, very specifically. I'm going to tell you how to fix it Wednesday evening. So call my office at 703-698-7117. We're located just off the National Capital Beltway on Route 50, less than about a quarter of a mile, in the Red Cross building. Give us a call, 703-698-7117. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about why digestion and pain and skin problems and so forth. By the way, do you know the time of day that your body clots the fastest and clots the best and sometimes overreacts? Well, guess what? I'm going to tell you that Wednesday night. So if you want to find out, you got to show up. But your body has very, very specific times it does certain things. Those are called rhythms, circadian rhythms. Some of them are very short, some of them are very long. Some rhythms are seasonal, some rhythms are annual, some rhythms are 30 days. Ladies, you have a rhythm when you're actively menstruating of 28 days, and some of you 35, but it's a regular cycle for you. Those cycles have to be respected when you look at any health condition. When you're looking at the fight-flight system, when you're looking at the adrenal system, it's important to understand the hormone rhythm. There's certain parts of the day when cortisol is at its highest and needs to be at its highest. There's certain parts of the day when it needs to calm down and get very low and needs to be that way if your body's going to begin the repair process. But unfortunately, so many of us aren't in that normal sequence, and we begin to destroy our body and our communication patterns between different systems that we have. Because if one's not firing, pretty soon it's going to back up to another one. And we have a tendency, particularly in traditional medicine, to fix the symptom and not ask the question where it started. How far downstream did this thing start? The more we understand that, the more we're able to really find a resolution. There's a call I want to take, because it may be on topic, and I want to point a couple things out. But, Natasha, thank you for calling. How can I help you?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Doctor. It's so nice to speak with you.
My pleasure. Thank you for calling.
I've been listening to you for a while, but when I heard you today, I was diagnosed 15 years ago with fibromyalgia after a pretty extreme event in my life.
Okay.
And just recently, like, let's say 2 months ago, it kind of flared up again. And it's I wake up at night, I'm in pain, I can't sleep through the night. My doctor had prescribed Flexerol, so if this happens, to help me get through the evening. Basically, I have a troubled teenager who has made me stressful. Also, psoriasis that I haven't had for years broke out. And I had a great doctor in D.C. I live in Virginia now, and who told me, exercise really helps, and, not to have stress, but we all have stress.
Yeah, it's just how you handle the stress that's more important than anything else.
Right, and I've tried to be calm, but, he's my son, and he's made me a little crazy. And,
welcome to parenthood.
Yeah, welcome to parenthood, yeah. So, and it's just, I really don't like to take the Flexerol because I don't, like...
Okay, let me ask you some questions, okay?
Okay.
And then let's walk through this. Now, this first happened how many years ago?
About 15 years ago.
Okay, how old are you now?
I just turned 50.
Okay, so when you were 35, the world crashed, and tell me specifically the symptoms that you had at that time. Be as specific as you can.
It happened in a day. It was an extreme event, and I actually shot up with a high fever. I couldn't move my legs. It was so traumatic. I was in shock. I think basically that's what the doctors told me. I went into shock.
Okay.
And then it, I finally went to see a doctor.
Were you in pain, or were you just immobile?
I was immobile.
Okay. So by definition, first of all, that's not fibromyalgia. All right? That's number one.
Okay.
You don't meet the criteria. You can have seemingly paralysis types of conditions that are there because of, and we can go through the list of mineral imbalances and nerve root pressure and stress-related conditions that affect the fight-flight system, the adrenal system, and because there was either an emotional stressor at that point that was the straw that broke the camel's back, or a biochemical stressor, that triggered this. The problem is significant, obviously, but it's not one that meets the criteria of fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is pain throughout the entire body.
Right, which I have.
Okay, it does not affect the joint spaces, although the joint spaces will feel tight, but the joint spaces are not involved relative to damage or degeneration. The American College of Rheumatology came up with these 18 trigger point areas that you have to have 11 of them to meet the standard.
Right.
The pain does not go away at all for at least 3 months, and then the list goes on. Now, most traditional testing comes up negative. But if we have a fibromyalgia case, you can diagnose it, not just by ruling things out and the trigger point patterns, but there are shifts in urinary cortisol, there are shifts in pituitary hormone, and so forth. And most physicians won't go into the trigger points or go into the muscle patterns in chronic cases and take a biopsy. The mitochondria, which are the little energy packs within the muscle fibers, actually increase in size, and they become like if you take a piece of thread and you start pulling on the thread, and you know how it frays?
Yeah.
That's what the muscle fibers look like. And so there's ways of doing that, but let's assume that you had pain. Let's assume that you couldn't move your legs. Let's assume that this pain persisted for a period of time, and we were dealing with a fibromyalgia condition. The first thing you have to do is look at where the triggering mechanisms are. Now, with limited conversation that we've had, you've already told me that, there was tremendous emotional stress, and another one just, hit the pile for you,
right,
which is going to trigger adrenal stress reactions, and it's going to deal with the steroids that the adrenal system puts out. It's going to deal with potassium and sodium imbalances in the body. It's going to deal with that whole upregulation from the adrenal system to the hypothalamus to the pituitary and so forth. To understand and to be able to fix it, you've got to go way back. You've got to see all the things that came about up until that moment in time, and then the straw that broke the camel's back, and then the ensuing symptom process.
I was going through a horrible divorce at the time.
Yep.
Yes, and there's a lot of things that led up to it. Yeah.
I'm sure there was. And, so you look at each one of those pieces. The point of it is, the more you understand about the pieces, the more you can go back to where the initiator was. Not the straw, but all those things that were stacking, injuries you may not have been aware of that you put up with,
right,
dietary patterns that perhaps weren't quite as supportive as they should be. And when you have that piece, then you fix those things. Even with adrenal patterns, unfortunately, even holistic physicians, chiropractors and naturopaths and acupuncturists want to often try to fix the symptom process, and it becomes a cooperative pattern between the patient and the doctor to begin to change things over time, and you begin to see them change very, very significantly. So what I'm saying to you is that if we understand where it is, we know that the emotional straw on the pile is what crashed everything, but we have to look at how it's affecting your body. We have to support systems, and if you do that properly, you can begin to change a lot of different things. I don't know enough about your specific situation to tell you to do X, Y, Z. But I'll tell you this, you're in Virginia. Join me Wednesday night. And
I've written it down. I think that I can. I had a speaking engagement for Wednesday evening that's just been canceled, so I think I will.
Great. And I will talk to you privately afterwards.
Okay.
All right. Fair enough?
Yes, thank you very much.
Good. I'll see you then.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Join me Wednesday evening for my presentation on adrenal stress, 703-698-7117. If you'd like to reach me off the air, go to rosellecare.com. That's ROSELLECARE.com. And I'll go back and forth with you. One of my docs will get to you, but one of us will answer your questions. It may take me a day or three or sometimes a week, but we'll get there. But if you'd like to talk to any of us, and particularly get more very specific information, this Wednesday evening is your opportunity, and you just need to give us a call, 703-698-7117. I will be your presenter, and it'll be my pleasure to try to answer all of your questions. I will stay and answer, and, we'll do the presentation. I'm going to give you more detail than you probably can handle, but nevertheless, it's going to be very applicable. We're going to go through stress survey, find out where you really are, and, kind of put this together. If you're a type A personality and you happen to internalize everything, well, there's a lot of things that are going to happen to you. You're more likely to die of a heart attack, and because your inflammatory levels are going to go through the ceiling, guess what? You have a tendency to make very dangerous mistakes in judgment that can cause you health problems like accidents. When you're under stress, you have a tendency to put other people under stress around you just by being around you. It's like you walk in and say, oh, my God. Those of us who are constantly hard driving, we have tremendous confidence in our abilities to do things. We're persistent. We're eager to take command and take the next step. We're perfectionists. But the problem is that with that comes the side event of stress, both physical, emotional. We have a tendency to skip meals, our blood sugars crash, and then all the ramifications from those misguided choices, if you will. Stress harms the body, and it harms it by increasing the wrong hormones, and those wrong hormones then cause problems by, for example, cognitive patterns go down the tubes, emotional instability, we flare all the time, anxiety, panic attacks, our immune systems begin to break down. But here's the other one. You get that roll around the middle, that fat death position that you just can't seem to get off, and you have to take a hard look. Why is it there? Your diet's not as bad as as it could be, but here's the clue. You're either storing it because your body thinks it's starving, so you're hypoglycemic, or your cortisol level is starting to pack on the water weight. Either way, it doesn't work. You can go down to eating nothing, and you get lighter, but the weight still stays there. It's still that little round pot that you have, or those love handles that you have that you can't get rid of. Those are stress. Those are due to increased cortisol levels, and then your body ultimately going the other way. This Wednesday evening, join me. We're going to talk about that intimately. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about cortisol and memory. We're going to talk about panic attacks. We're going to talk about chronic pain that just doesn't go away. We're going to talk about your immune system. And we're going to be uninterrupted. That means no commercials. That means that I can talk to you for a couple hours. That means I can hang out and answer your questions, and I'll be delighted to do that. So whether you have a thyroid problem or you have blood sugar handling challenges, you're going into diabetes, you're at that level where the next step is going to take you down, your constant pain pattern just won't go away. You're on all kinds of medications. You'd like to figure out how to get rid of them. If you're becoming osteoporotic, all of this is tied in, and this is what I'm trying to tell you. It's all tied in, and you've got to be able to do it the right way. If you're willing to take control, if you realize that your health is a do-it-yourself program, please join me. We'll have some fun, I promise you, and I'll turn the lights on. 703-698-7117. I'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You've been listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. I've been in studio broadcasting from 105.9 FM and AM 630 WMAL. You can reach me any Sunday at 12 noon by calling 888-630-WMAL. This Wednesday evening, I want to invite you, please be my guest. This is an opportunity for you to change your life and really understand why things begin to break down. Whether you have thyroid problems or you're got weight that you can't take off, ladies, you're going through a bad hormonal part of your life, whether it's perimenopause or you're in that menstrual stage and you really have things that happen that you can't understand, hypertension, heart disease, pain that just won't stop. It's all related to the same organ system, the fight-flight system, the adrenal system. Please be my guest this Wednesday evening, the 22nd, 7:30 p.m., Call 703-698-7117. Tell my staff you'd like to attend my lecture, my presentation on adrenal stress. We will get knee to knee and up close and comfortable with this thing, and I'll give you guidelines, things that you can do to help yourself. It's imperative. Trust me, I know. I'm the Class A guy. I'm the one that pushes constantly. I'm always on the go. I'm always on the run. And if I don't have tools to protect myself, I go down, and I go down hard. This Wednesday evening, the 22nd, give my office a call. Let's talk a little bit about thyroid and why some of you, no matter what you do, doesn't seem to make a difference relative to thyroid function. Well, guess what? The majority of people who have thyroid problems have a condition called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. We used to think it's just a slowing down of thyroid function, but more and more research is coming out now and saying that it's an inflammatory reaction, autoimmune depression, that's causing the problem. So it goes back to our old friend cortisol. When cortisol levels suppress, they lower thyroid function. They cause hypothyroidism. But here's the catch. You can go into hypo and hyperthyroid. You can go back and forth. It's a reactive pattern. Most physicians don't pick that up. It's because they don't understand the rhythm of what the adrenal system does in relationship to the upregulation of an organ in the brain called the hypothalamus and its triggering pattern to the pituitary, which in turn releases something called thyroid-stimulating hormone. If thyroid-stimulating hormone is released properly and the thyroid gland is not inflamed and there's enough minerals and there's enough amino acids, one particularly called tyrosine, and some iodine, then it's going to produce the hormone thyroxine, which is T4. Now, that has to be converted. Where is it converted? It's converted in the liver. Now, providing the liver is working properly and the phases of hormonal regulation there are working the way we want them to work, then your thyroid's going to work. But there's more to the story than that, and we're going to talk about it specifically. I'll spend several minutes going over it and show you where the patterns are. Please understand, this Wednesday evening is all about you, so please join me. Call my office at 703-698-7117. I'll see you next week at 12 o'clock, and I'll see you this Wednesday at 7:30.